G'day, Scarvig here, and I'm about to cover the TLC 3 patch for Ark, as well as the Genesis 2 trailer reveal. And I watched it just a little while ago, and yes, it looks really awesome. And it looks like they're going to basically have a colony ship, which is called the Genesis ship, and on there is going to be everything that I hope that it's going to have everything that we have already done through all the various different things, and have the various specific biomes and all the creatures to date. And potentially some other variants along the way. And it's sort of reintroduced Rockwell into the game, and there's a confrontation between HLA and Rockwell in terms of their history, and Rockwell has taken over the colony ship, and somehow we're then pulled into the mix. It's going to be interesting to see how that boss mechanic plays out. But anyway, other than that, how about we go through a whole bunch of the concept art that they've actually shown. First up, we've got the Genesis ship, and from what we can actually see with the Genesis ship, the central rings of the ship appear to be where the biomes actually going to be, and they're actually on some rings, kind of like your Halo style rings. It's quite an interesting way of presenting it, but I have no idea if there's going to be the ability to travel outside of the ship itself, or whether you'll actually be able to get into the front or fore sections of front and aft, stern and aft, well, the front and the back of the ship. Be interesting to see a bit more of the exterior detail in terms of the second image that we actually got given. And then from there we can actually start looking at some of the biomes. Now, one of the first biomes that we actually got to see was, it's almost like a biomass style scene, and you can actually see where the almost tentacle like tendrils wandering all over the scene. There are sphincters, there are eyeballs in the scenery. It's almost as if there's a creature that has actually taken over the structure of the actual zone. And you can kind of see a person standing there in the middle of it all. It'll be interesting to see if the actual terrain itself is hostile, because I can actually see mouths in there as well. The next one that we have is kind of more your cavernous region, and you can actually see various different fungal growths. And so this looks more like your aberration style, but a little bit nicer, a little bit more colourful, and probably a little bit more bright. And so this is one, I'm hoping this one ends up being more your aberration style, but just a nicer scene, because I didn't really like how dank and dark aberration actually was. Next up, we've just got your standard nice rolling hills. You kind of can see a little bit of the space structure in the background, but this seems to be what you would normally see in your Ark, on your island or anything like that, where you just got the lovely scenery. And then integrating it with tech itself, and how the actual scenery then blends in with the ship itself. And so if this concept art plays out, it's going to be quite an interesting thing to explore. And I'm hoping that the map is actually massive this time, unlike the Genesis Part 1, how each individual map was a specific biome, which you couldn't easily just walk from one to the other nicely. And yeah, needs to be bigger, not those tiny little things that we got. Next up, we're going to go look into the creatures themselves. Now, these are pretty much just going to be in some form of alphabetical order. We'll see. I've just named the files and we'll see how they come out. The first one is actually the Equus. It looks like they've given it a little bit of a biome-specific variant. I can't actually tell what that is other than a few different stripes. It doesn't really show a huge difference to the actual original Equus. I guess that one will play out a bit better once we actually get in there. We then have the Asteroid Delta, and so this kind of very similar to the space-like creature that we had before, but this one looks more like a Tuso? No, not Tuso. It's the Lead Sixthus, so a flying Lead Sixthus. It's probably going to use the same model actually, based on the imagery that we're given just there. From there, we've got a few of the different variants that we actually have going on, like the Dillo. The Dillo is getting an upgrade to the what is it? They called it the X variant. We have the X variant on the Reaper, and finally we have one of the new creatures, the Shadowmane. The Shadowmane itself, this thing looks crazy. Can't wait to actually get one of these and actually ride it. I think this one's going to be actually pretty awesome. It's kind of like your new natural type creature, but obviously it's something that Rockwell himself may have actually created or mutated. Looks like it'll be fun to play around with. We have some of the tech creatures, so we got the new Strider, and in the trailer they basically show this thing as harvesting various things, and yeah, I'm not sure what the actual things that it's going to be able to provide, whether it will actually create or destroy, or whether it's just going to be a harvesting tool or harvesting tech creature. It looks like it has the ability to have a platform saddle on the back. So it's probably going to be quite a large creature, and you might be able to have a mobile base, which would also be pretty cool. And so you can basically wander around on your mobile base collecting the resources that you're actually looking for. The Noglin, so this is the one that's been, a lot of pictures have been going around, and it seems like it may end up being something parasitic. I'm not exactly certain. I saw some words to the effect that there might be some form of brain control. Who knows? But this little thing is, that's a nasty piece of artistry. Cool artistry at the same time, but yeah. Yeah, so it kind of reminds me of Stitch from Lilo and Stitch, but obviously just a little bit more on steroids in terms of that. What have we got next up? Alright, so we're into the items next up, and we'll go through basically what they've actually, well, what I've found. My list may not actually be exhaustive, it's just what I've got. So we've got the ammo box. Apparently this will be that you can reload your turrets rather than having to manually go in and feed them ammunition. So having an ammo crate where you can basically put all your ammunition and things will feed from that. And it sounds actually pretty good to me. A canoe. A canoe was a weird one. I don't mind. I mean, it'll be a good starter little thing where if that biome showed a very, very large water mass, being able to jump onto there with the canoe, just so you can have a lead cyclist come up and eat your canoe on you. It'll be interesting to see. We have a remote camera security station, where it sounds like you'll be able to control various different drones that you actually have, or maybe even cameras that you've set up, which would be an interesting one from a, I guess even from a PvP point of view. Well, it's pretty much only PvP. You know, setting up security cameras so that you can monitor various different areas so that you can see people coming or not. It'd be interesting to see how people utilize that particular item. My favorite, the egg incubator. It's about time they actually introduced one of these. For a long time you would use mods basically to do mass production of eggs so that you can do mutations, and they've never really introduced their own version of that, and so I'll be interested to see how this one plays out, whether it has that nice feature that I think something like the S Plus or the Superstructures mod actually had available. We'll see where that one goes as well. A new rideable tech item, the hover sail. It's hard to say what it's actually going on. I mean, it shows the picture of the guy riding it in two different forms. One like a surfboard and one where he's holding on for dear life. I don't know how that one's going to play out. I mean, it looks pretty cool. A flying surfboard. Could be good, could be bad. Who knows? Maybe you've got one guy on the front who's basically, he's holding his pistol there by the looks of it, and one guy who's riding it, so you basically have someone who's actually directing things and one person that's shooting. Interesting piece. No idea how that one's going to work. Mannequin. Okay, so it's just a mannequin. Be interesting to see how that one actually looks with real equipment rather than a scarecrow. A minigun with a collapsible mount by the looks of that too. So I assumed that we're going to be able to carry this around and then you'll be able to deploy it. Whether or not you can actually shoot it while you're carrying it will remain to seen. Whether you actually have to go to the place that you want it, put it down, and then you can shoot it. No idea. Apparently the tech suit is getting some form of an upgrade. Doesn't look too much different. They're just calling it a Federation tech suit. So maybe it will have something different. I don't know. It looks fairly similar. Maybe it's a bit bigger. A tech bow. The tech bow looks pretty cool. It'll be interesting to see what they can introduce there, and whether that arrow itself is a real arrow or an energy arrow. You would assume it's a real arrow. Maybe it gets powered up or something like that from the tech. Or maybe you have different types of arrows. It would be nice to actually have a couple of different styles of arrows now. Given that you've got rocket launchers and all the rest of that sort of stuff. Maybe some explosive arrows, poison arrows. More than just your standard arrow and a trank arrow. Some extra ammunition types would actually be pretty cool. Next up we have the tech crop pot. It is what it is. You know, it'll be interesting to see what that one can actually do. seeing as, you know, everyone loves to have a farm, so you can grow all your crops. But I'm not sure why you would need a tech crop plot at the end of the game unless you're really on PvP. You know, obviously they're showing the picture of some of the plant species being grown in there, but what does the tech crop plot offer you other than what the standard crop plot does? Unless this one just doesn't need food or doesn't need water and provides itself. I don't know. Something. What will a tech crop plot do for you other than providing more structure? Or maybe it actually provides its own greenhouse. That would be pretty cool. Next up we have the tech pistol, which shows basically it has different modes, where obviously you can kill, you can stun, and you can heal. Stun, I assume, is for knocking creatures out so that you can tame them. But, yeah, don't know. It looks like it's kind of a useful multi-tool if you ever actually get to that stage of the game. Okay, and the last thing that I have on the Genesis reveal is this beautiful piece of work here. And I wonder if this will actually be a creature, or whether this will be Rockwell and how he manifests himself. But geez, the pictures just look awesome. It's probably going to be quite a fun experience when you come across something like this within the map. Alright, well that appears to be what I have for the Genesis 2 reveal. Make sure that if there's anything in there that you really like or you're looking forward to, maybe there's stuff in there you don't like, or maybe I missed something, let me know down in the comments what you think. Next up, we should probably talk about the TLC stuff itself. And what they've actually done there is a number of different things. They've allowed new breedable creatures. I'll learn how to talk eventually. A lot of the creatures that you couldn't breed before, so your spiders, your bat, your moth, your scorpion, arthropleura, mantis. They previously couldn't be bred, but now you'll be able to, which sounds pretty bloody awesome. I'm actually liking the idea of being able to breed moths and the mantis. The others, yeah, I'll take it. It doesn't matter so much for me. They're the ones I think I would enjoy being able to breed the most. So with all the quality of life changes, there's been a number of different things. A lot of them are to do with maturation times and things like that. But some of the more interesting ones would be the Thylacoleo now has a bleed attack. So I'll be interested to see where that one actually goes with things. The wyverns are now breedable, which is also going to be fantastic. Looking forward to seeing that. Always wanted to be able to do some imprinting on wyverns, so having that is going to be a nice thing as well. The Megalodon has now going to get a pack bonus, which is pretty crazy. So you get an underwater pack bonus, which obviously has not been there before, and apparently the Megalodon will also gain a bleed to its attack, to its basic attack. And I imagine that replaying the island again now, if the Megalodon has those, that would make the underwater areas quite interesting. Probably quite a lot more dangerous. I have to wait and see. Might have to go back and just see what it's like. Crazy enough, the Ankylosaurus got an increased reduction in metal carrying. Sure, I didn't really think it needed it, but there you go. It's going to get that. The Doedicurus. The Doedicurus, you're going to be allowed to turn while rolling. Would not have expected that. And apparently the Basilisk did not have eyes. I didn't even know that. Next up, we're basically going to have a new Taming HUD. This one looks like a crazy piece of work, and it's quite nice. So it's basically somewhere where you can actually track multiple taming, multiple tames that you actually have going on at a given time. And it looks like there will be a tracking location and all that sort of stuff, which is quite nice. There's not many times that I've actually had multiple things going on at once, but that's mainly because I play single player. I would imagine that from a tribe perspective, if it shows all of your tribe's tames that are currently going on, and you could have various different people come and find the tames and help manage what's going on, that would actually be very, very helpful. But yeah, for those people a little bit more gung-ho and you might have multiple things on the run, that will also be quite good too. Alright, the next section of the TLC is the creatures that got quite the overhaul. The woolly mammoth got a big overhaul. It now has a war drum saddle, which will actually provide a buff in an AoE area for stamina regen, and also makes people immune to fear. That will actually make it quite interesting for taking down things like the Uteranus. with the fact that it would fear your creatures and things like that. So it'll be interesting to see if the immune to fear will actually affect your teams, which will actually be quite good. It will have a new tusk sweep, which is pretty much what it had before, but I'm guessing it's a revamped attack. It will gather the thatch. It has a trumpet. The trumpet will actually affect a debuff to all enemies within range, as well as the fact that after being in water, your trumpet can actually spray water, hydrating people, removing fire debuffs, and obviously cooling you down. The foot stomp. The foot stomps will be able to rear up and slam down. I reckon it's going to be pretty fun to watch. And apparently it will knock back enemies as well as gather wood. So it's the alternate. So yeah, so you power all your fine harvesting. And then lastly you get a trunk grab. So just like the Canoes, it will be able to grab people, or smaller targets. The next creature on the TLC is the Stego. Alright, so the Stego now has backplate modes. And it'll be interesting to see how this one really plays out. I haven't had a chance to look at this obviously, but there'll be hardened plates, heavy plates, and sharpened plates. And the hardened plates are a damage reduction buff, and also gives a boost to the wood harvesting. The heavy plates is basically applies a slow with the tail whip, and then obviously has a thatch harvesting. Obviously, it applies also a thatch harvesting benefit. It's not that obvious, but apparently that's what you're going to get. And the sharpened one is an armor penetration with the tail whip. But it also is for harvesting berries. So there's a whole bunch of different things packed into the different modes, and the fact that the different modes means that you can actually switch between them, which means you can change what the Stego is actually doing. It actually makes it kind of a little bit of a multi-purpose harvester when it comes to wood thatch. I'm surprised they made it berries. What about fibers? Hopefully it collects fibers as well. I'll have to wait and see. Its new attack being the improved tail whip, being able to impale and immobilize players and creatures below a certain health threshold. Okay, so you have to get a creature down low and then you can impale it. Okay, fair enough. I would have thought there'd be a size thing, but apparently there's a health thing in there too. Interesting to see how that one plays out too, and people getting stuck onto tails and wandering around with them. And yeah, additionally with the Stego, apparently you'll be prevented from dismounting effects, which is actually quite cool. So when you're on the Stego, you're pretty much there. And apparently lastly it has a berry weight reduction buff. So you'll be able to carry all the berries you could ever want. Which sounds pretty crazy, but you know, that's going to be a thing. Alright, other than that, there'll be just a few fixes. I'll just chuck up a little bit of a clip of the fixes now and finish it off. And yeah, I guess if you made it this far, thanks for watching my little TLC Genesis 2 update. And make sure that you go ahead and either hit the like or the dislike button, I don't really care. I'd like to know how I'm doing with these things. And yeah, leave a comment. Let me know what you think. What is it that you are looking forward to most across the TLC and the Genesis 2 coming up early next year, I think March. I think for me, it's just a new map that is big with a new boss. I reckon it sounds pretty cool. But it has to be big, can't be small. Alright. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.